It was a hot summer afternoon at a quiet gas station just outside a small town. The sun hung heavy in the sky, casting long shadows as cars pulled in and out to refuel. Among the few customers was an elderly woman, petite and refined, her silver hair neatly tied back and her sunglasses perched perfectly on her nose. She moved with grace as she parked her modest sedan near one of the pumps and began filling her tank. The woman's calm and elegant demeanor gave off a quiet confidence, but it was also a confidence that seemed to attract unwanted attention. From the distance, the rumbling sound of motorcycles filled the air, getting louder with each second. A group of 5 bikers roared into the gas station, their motorcycles glinting under the sun. The men clad in leather jackets with patches, tattoos snaking up their arms, and rough, unshaven faces dismounted their bikes and immediately made their presence known. They laughed boisterously, their voices echoing through the quiet lot as they shoved and joked with one another. At first, the bikers paid little attention to the elderly woman, but as they wandered toward the gas pumps, one of them noticed her. "Hey, look at that fancy old lady over there," sneered one biker, a tall man with a jagged scar across his cheek. "Must be driving Daddy's car." The others chuckled and followed his gaze. The woman didn't acknowledge them at first. She focused on finishing her refueling, pretending not to hear the comments, but ignoring them only seemed to embolden the group. One of the bikers, a stocky man with a booming voice, shouted out, "Hey, lady, you think you're too good to say hello?" He walked toward her, his heavy boots thudding against the pavement. The woman paused, turning her head slightly. "Excuse me," she said, her voice calm and polite but carrying an edge of authority. "You heard me," the stocky biker barked, now standing only a few feet away. The rest of the group gathered behind him, smirking and enjoying the show. "It's rude not to answer when someone talks to you, Granny." The elderly woman met his gaze behind her sunglasses. "I don't believe I owe you an answer," she replied firmly, her tone steady. The bikers erupted in laughter. "Oh, we got a feisty one here," the scarred biker jeered, stepping forward. "Come on, sweetheart, you're at our gas station now. Maybe show a little respect, huh?" He reached for the woman's arm, but she quickly pulled back, taking a step away from him. "Don't touch me," she said, her voice sharper now. "Oh, ho!" the stocky biker howled, holding his belly as he laughed. "She's got attitude. What are you gonna do? Call the cops? You think they'll get here before we're done talking?" The other bikers continued to egg each other on, growing louder and rowdier with every passing second. The woman held her ground, her composure unshaken despite the threatening situation. But as she glanced around, it became clear that there were no other customers nearby, no one to step in and help. "I suggest you leave me alone," the woman said once more, her voice unwavering. "Oh yeah? And who's gonna make us?" the scarred biker sneered, stepping forward again. The woman stayed silent, staring at him with a calm intensity that only seemed to irritate the man further. But just as he opened his mouth to speak again, the sound of another vehicle pulling into the gas station broke through the tense silence. A sleek black motorcycle rolled in, its engine purring like a beast. The rider was wearing a dark helmet and a leather jacket, exuding an air of effortless cool as he pulled up to the pump next to the elderly woman. The bikers paused, their attention shifting toward the newcomer. The rider turned off the engine, dismounted and removed his helmet, revealing none other than Keanu Reeves. For a moment there was silence. The bikers stood frozen, their jaws dropping as they recognized the Hollywood legend standing just a few feet away. Keanu looked around, taking in the scene, the aggressive bikers, the nervous energy, and the elderly woman standing her ground. "Is there a problem here?" Keanu asked coolly, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable weight. The stocky biker blinked, trying to regain his composure. No, man. No problem at all." Keanu's gaze shifted to the elderly woman, and for the first time a soft smile crossed his face. "Mom," he said warmly, walking over to her. The biker's eyes widened in shock. "Mom," the scarred biker whispered, his face paling. The elderly woman smiled back at Keanu, her calm demeanor finally relaxing. "Keanu, darling," she said softly, "you're just in time." The bikers exchanged panicked glances, realizing the gravity of their mistake. They had just harassed Keanu Reeves' mother. The gas station fell into an eerie silence as the bikers exchanged nervous glances. Keanu Reeves stood calmly beside his mother, his sharp gaze cutting through the tension like a knife. He wasn't shouting or scolding. He didn't need to. His very presence was enough to make the rowdy bikers squirm. "Is this how you treat people?" Keanu asked, his voice calm but firm. He turned his attention to the stocky biker, who had been the loudest instigator. "You think it's funny to intimidate someone because they're alone?" The stocky biker fumbled for words. "Look, man, we didn't know. Uh, we didn't know she was your mom." Keanu raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "And if she wasn't my mom, would that make it okay?" The stocky biker opened his mouth but quickly shut it. The rest of the group began shifting uneasily on their feet, their tough exteriors cracking under the weight of Keanu's quiet disapproval. He wasn't yelling, wasn't threatening, but his calm demeanor only made the moment more intense. "Respect isn't something you give because someone's related to a celebrity," Keanu continued, his tone steady. "It's something you give to everyone. I don't care if it's an old woman, a young kid, or a complete stranger. You treat people with dignity." The scarred biker, still shaken, tried to recover some of his bravado. "Look, man, we were just messing around. It wasn't serious." Keanu tilted his head slightly, his calm gaze locking onto the scarred man's eyes. "Did it look like a joke to her?" he asked, gesturing subtly toward his mother. The scarred biker had no answer. He looked down, avoiding Keanu's piercing stare. The group began to realize there was no way to talk their way out of this. They had gone too far, and now they were standing face to face with someone who wouldn't let them get away with it. The elderly woman stepped forward, her presence quiet but strong. "Thank you, Keanu," she said softly, placing a gentle hand on his arm. She turned her attention to the bikers, her voice calm but firm. "You gentlemen should think about how you treat people. What you did was unacceptable." The scarred biker's shoulders slumped as he mumbled, "We're sorry, ma'am." "We didn't mean to." The elderly woman held up her hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "Apologies are only meaningful if they come with change. Remember that." Keanu looked at his mother with admiration, a soft smile tugging at his lips. Despite everything, she remained composed and dignified, a true force to be reckoned with. He turned back to the bikers and said, "I think you've said enough. I suggest you leave." The bikers didn't need to be told twice. The stocky man was the first to retreat, hastily walking back to his motorcycle. "Let's go," he muttered to the others. One by one, they followed suit, their heavy boots thudding against the pavement as they mounted their bikes. Engines roared to life, but the bravado and arrogance they had entered with were completely gone. Within moments, they sped off, leaving nothing but a trail of dust and embarrassment in their wake. As the noise of the motorcycles faded into the distance, the gas station was peaceful once more. Keanu turned to his mother with a grin. "You okay?" She nodded with a small smile. "I was fine, but it's always nice to have you swoop in like a hero." Keanu chuckled softly. "You don't need me to be a hero, Mom. You've always handled yourself just fine." His mother's eyes twinkled with pride. "That may be true, but every now and then, it's nice to let someone else do the saving." They shared a warm laugh, the bond between them clear to anyone who might have been watching. Keanu reached into his pocket, pulling out his credit card. "Let me get this for you," he said, pointing to the gas pump. "Consider it my way of repaying you for all the rides you gave me as a kid." The elderly woman laughed softly. "You don't owe me a thing, darling, but I'll take the free gas." As Keanu began to pay for her fuel, a car pulled into the station, and a young boy stepped out with wide eyes. "Oh my gosh, it's Keanu Reeves!" he shouted, his excitement echoing through the quiet lot. Keanu glanced up and smiled warmly at the boy, waving in his direction. "Hey there, kiddo!" The boy's mother quickly followed, looking a little embarrassed. "Sorry about that, Mr. Reeves. He's just a big fan." Keanu shook his head with a grin. "No need to apologize. It's always nice to meet a fan." He knelt down slightly, making eye contact with the boy. "How's it going? You staying out of trouble?" The boy nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, sir. You're my favorite actor ever." Keanu laughed and gave the boy a fist bump. "That means a lot to me. Thanks, buddy." The boy grinned from ear to ear as his mother guided him back to their car. Keanu stood and turned back to his mother, who was watching the exchange with a soft smile. You know, she said, you've always had a way of making people feel special. Keanu shrugged modestly. It doesn't take much to be kind. His mother's smile grew wider. It doesn't, but not everyone bothers. That's what makes you different. Keanu glanced back at the road where the bikers had disappeared, his expression thoughtful. Maybe those guys will learn something from today. Sometimes people just need a reminder. Maybe, his mother agreed, but if they don't, that's their burden to carry, not ours. Keanu nodded, absorbing her wisdom like he had so many times before. You're right, as always. As they finished up at the pump, Keanu walked his mother back to her car and opened the door for her. You sure you don't want me to follow you home? He asked. She shook her head with a knowing smile. I'll be fine, Keanu. I've been driving longer than you've been alive. Keanu laughed and kissed her gently on the cheek. All right, Mom. Drive safe. As she pulled out of the gas station, Keanu watched her car disappear down the road, a soft smile lingering on his face. He stood there for a moment, the summer sun casting long shadows, before climbing back onto his sleek black motorcycle. He revved the engine and glanced back at the empty lot, where just moments ago chaos had threatened to unfold. With a deep breath, Keanu rode off into the distance, leaving behind a quiet gas station, a humbled group of bikers, and the story of an unforgettable encounter that no one would ever forget. Keanu's motorcycle hummed steadily as he rode along the winding road, the wind rushing past his face. Despite the calm now restored at the gas station, his mind lingered on the events that had just transpired. It wasn't the first time he had witnessed someone being mistreated, but something about seeing his mother at the center of it left him with a quiet unease. He knew she was tough, stronger than most people gave her credit for. But the thought of anyone disrespecting her stung deeper than he expected. As he sped along the open road, Keanu's thoughts turned to the bikers. He wasn't angry. He rarely let anger guide him. Instead, he felt disappointment. How had respect become so rare? The world was full of people too quick to judge, too eager to act out of ego or bravado. He hoped those bikers would reflect on the encounter, not because he was Keanu Reeves, but because they'd realized their behavior had been wrong, regardless of who the target was. As the town disappeared behind him, Keanu made a turn toward his family's old home, where his mother still lived. The house sat tucked into a quiet neighborhood, surrounded by sprawling trees and warm memories. As he pulled into the driveway, the familiar sight of his mother's sedan, parked out front, brought a small smile to his face. He parked the motorcycle, dismounted, and made his way toward the front door. Before he could knock, the door swung open, and his mother stood there, already knowing he would follow her home. Keanu, she said with mock exasperation, though her expression was one of warmth. You didn't need to check on me. I know, Mom, Keanu replied with a soft grin. I just wanted to make sure you were all right. She stepped aside, allowing him into the house. The living room still looked exactly as he remembered it. Cozy furniture, family photos on the walls, and shelves filled with books she loved. I'm fine, you know, she said as she gestured for him to sit down. Those bikers were nothing more than a nuisance. I've dealt with far worse in my day. I don't doubt it, Keanu said, sinking into the familiar couch. But that doesn't mean I'm okay with it. His mother walked into the kitchen, returning with 2 cups of tea. She handed one to Keanu and sat down across from him. You know, she began, what happened today reminded me of something your father once told me. Keanu's gaze lifted, intrigued. What's that? He said that the way people treat others, especially those they think are beneath them, says more about their character than anything else. It's easy to be kind to someone powerful or famous, but it's how you treat the so-called nobodies that defines who you are. Keanu nodded thoughtfully, absorbing her words. That's true, he said softly. People show their real selves in those moments. His mother sipped her tea, watching him with quiet pride. And today, those men showed who they were. But you showed them who you are, too. Keanu looked up, confused. I didn't really do much. I just showed up. His mother smiled knowingly. Sometimes showing up is everything. Standing up for what's right doesn't always mean making a big fuss. You reminded them that their behavior wasn't okay, just by being present and refusing to let it slide. You didn't need anger or violence to teach them a lesson. Keanu leaned back, her words sinking in. I hope they learned something from it. They will, she said with certainty. Or maybe they won't, but that's not up to you to decide. You did your part. Keanu sat quietly for a moment, staring into his tea. His mother's wisdom always seemed to come at just the right time. It reminded him of why he admired her so much, her strength, her grace, and her unwavering belief in the good that people were capable of. You know, he said finally, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips, you're a lot tougher than me. His mother chuckled. Nonsense. I raised you to be the man you are today. So whatever strength you see in me, you carry in yourself too. Keanu laughed softly. I'll take your word for it. They sat together in comfortable silence for a while, the afternoon sun streaming in through the windows. Keanu felt grateful for moments like these, simple, quiet reminders of what really mattered. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of town, the bikers had pulled over at a roadside diner. They sat together in a booth, picking at their food in awkward silence. The cocky energy they'd carried earlier was gone, replaced by something far heavier, shame. The scarred biker, who had been the most vocal, finally broke the silence. Man, that was Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves. The stocky biker nodded, staring at his half-eaten burger. Yeah, and that was his mom. Can you believe we acted like that? One of the others muttered, shaking his head. The group fell quiet again, the weight of their actions settling over them. It wasn't just the fact that Keanu Reeves had caught them. It was the realization that they'd harassed someone who had done nothing to deserve it. Look, guys, the scarred biker said after a long pause, his voice softer than usual. Maybe it's time we stop acting like idiots. We're grown men. It's time we started acting like it. The others nodded in agreement, murmuring words of regret. For the first time in a long while, the group sat together not as bullies or troublemakers, but as men willing to reflect on their behavior. Keanu's quiet intervention had left a mark, and maybe, just maybe, it would be the catalyst for change. Back at his mother's house, Keanu stood to leave, pulling on his jacket. Thanks for the tea, Mom. I'm glad you're okay. She walked him to the door and kissed his cheek. I'll always be okay, Keanu. Now go on. You've got people to inspire. Keanu grinned. I'll see you soon. As he climbed back onto his motorcycle and rode off down the quiet street, Keanu carried his mother's words with him. The world could be harsh, but moments of kindness, of standing up for what was right, could ripple farther than anyone realized. And somewhere in the distance, a group of bikers were learning that very lesson. Keanu walked into a small roadside diner later that evening, where the bikers sat quietly in a corner booth. Their rowdy bravado was gone, replaced by regret. When they noticed Keanu, their eyes widened. We didn't mean harm back there, the scarred biker muttered, embarrassed. Keanu looked at them calmly. Why did you do it? He asked simply. The room fell silent. Trying to be tough, one admitted, but it didn't make us feel good. Keanu nodded, his voice steady. Real strength is knowing when to do the right thing. It's never too late to be better. The men sat in reflection as Keanu walked away, leaving behind words that would change them forever.